It's a pleasure to be with you today, Frank, on Tech Talk Thursday.
Yeah.
And admittedly, I don't know if I'd call myself a tech person. I'm a recovering environmental lawyer and have my doctorate. So maybe maybe we call it Nerd Talk Thursday or something, or I don't know.
We can do.
Um, I think AquLaurus Group stands for the proposition that the world of water needs to consider the discipline of strategic foresight. I begin with the sort of the thesis or maybe the hypothesis that the world of water is typically reactive and tactical culturally,
Yes.
and nothing necessarily inherently wrong with that. I mean, we want water utilities, for example, to be predictable and consistent in the way that they produce clean, safe, abundant drinking water. We want the predictability of wastewater treatment so that when we return water to the environment, it's not polluted. We also have our friends in stormwater, reclaimed water. We have not for profits. We have consulting firms. We have academia. We have regulators. There's a certain sense of predictability and consistency throughout the world of water. However, we live in a world that is subject to volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. You know, the term VUCA. And the discipline of strategic foresight it's not forecasting. We're not kind of hitting a known destination. It looks at the possible, the probable, the preposterous futures that may be out there. And how do we look to the future 10, 20 years out and look at the forces of change, wild cards, and scan the horizon for risks and opportunities, and then backcast what we find into strategies today so that we can either be successful in the future or avoid risks that we really don't want to come across. And so the discipline of strategic foresight helps us anticipate, frame, and shape the future, our preferred future, right? You've heard the bumper sticker, you know, let's make the future, right? Not let it happen. And so I try to work with organizations to help them make the future the one that they want, the preferred future or preferred futures. It's multiple.
So let
So
me ask a question. So
yeah,
if you're getting in, let's say you get involved with a water utility, a company,
yeah.
company, whatever, and would you be guiding them through a process to cast the future as you described it, with risks, so on and so forth, which is, I think, very exciting. And then once they cast that future, then they come back to today to make sure that the strategies and plans that that are in the plan for today will get them to that future and will allow them the open space, so to speak, to deal with some unknowns that they,
Yeah.
so on and so forth. Is that does that frame it?
I think it does. It's a fair synopsis. Multiple futures. What does that mean? What does the future look like? There's many different tools that we can use in the world of foresight. Uh, Many people have heard of scenario planning. That's a very time consuming, but very rewarding tool that can be used, or it can be something very simple, such as using the futures wheel. Uh, it's very participatory. We don't just sit around with the smart leaders like you, Frank, right? We got to get all the other people involved from the different disciplines of the company, the organization, the utility. We got to look at even inviting customers in, or even a regulator, a supplier, and getting them around the table and talking about the issues that are most important. What are the future scenarios? What happens in a transformational scenario? What happens in a what we might call a collapse scenario, or even just business as usual? Where are we going to be in 10 to 20 years? Looking at the drivers of change, and then, as you put it, okay, if these are the preferred futures that we want to see, backcast those into strategies today. whether it's acquiring technology or recruiting people or maybe some regulatory or legislative changes. And then how do we go about doing that? But all the while, remember, this is not linear thinking. This is systems thinking. And you have to be systematic and continuously observing um, your environment, the social, the economic, environmental, technological, even the ethical environment in which you exist, and looking for signals of change and being aware that maybe perhaps one of the strategies that you have identified, it may be changing a bit, right? Something may be happening a little sooner, or maybe there's some delay, and you need to then continuously meet and update those strategies. So uh, that is, I think your summary is correct. It's on point.
So in looking at what you're doing, so I really need to, I think that I would have to look at maybe my ecosystem, all the things around that we impact and that impact us. And as part of this, project those into the future so I could see how I would be projecting my business into the future, because all of these other areas are going to impact it, and then bring it back to today and do the planning. Does that kind of make sense or no?
Yeah, I kind of view foresight as the tip of the spear. I mean, and it's not a one time deal. It is a commitment to, it's a systematic commitment by the organization to have teams of people that are practicing that type of anticipatory leadership, being able to continuously monitor your environment, and internal and external environment, for signals of change. Yeah, and to me, foresight is the first thing you need to do, because that informs your strategy, and your strategy then informs your organizational design, which then impacts your talent management. With strategy, you're looking for direction, alignment, and commitment within the organization. But frankly, uh, if you to paraphrase Lewis Carroll, if you don't know where you're going, any path will take you there. And so, uh, continuously looking out on the horizon will help you better refine your strategy or strategies, to ensure that you have the right direction, that you're aligned, and you have the commitment. Because if there are people in your organization, they're smart, and they may see signals of change that you either don't care about, you're ignoring, and they may become misaligned.
Mhm.
They may lack commitment, and there goes your strategy. Change your culture a bit. Um, so that's the way I look at foresight. It is an ongoing systematic approach to ensuring that you as an organization are always looking at your preferred future and avoiding the risks that you don't want to come your way. So
So how who participates at levels, I guess,
mhm.
in developing that future? Then who participates in developing the strategy to get to the future? How deep in the company
Yeah,
do you have to take that, do you think?
I think it involves everybody. I mean, certainly you have decision makers, right? But I think the foresight process, depending on the tools you use, um, it needs to be presented to the leadership. It may involve the leadership in getting to that point, but at some point, you're going to need to have the overall leadership look at it, the work product, and say, okay, it makes sense. They may learn things they've never thought of before. You may have people in your team that are seeing signals of change that the leadership, frankly, aren't seeing. Um, I think when you think about the of Steve Carell, who travels to gather, to verify, to validate the signals of change that he's seeing in the market. He's at a club talking to dancers, right?
Right.
he's he's looking at abandoned homes. He's doing a lot of that, and he's kind of saying, I'm seeing signals, right? So he may not be the CEO of Goldman Sachs, but he is he is kind of engaging in foresight behavior. He's looking for, sensing things based on his knowledge of the industry, and he's going out and validating those concerns. And so um, you will find people throughout the organization that will be participating in developing the work product, but it's going to take everyone down the chain to develop the strategies, and then you have to think about executing the strategies. And so if this is where we're going, these are the people we need to hire. I mean, even the talent management professional, right, who's screening and interviewing people, they've got a job to do that's aligned with the strategy that's based on where they see the world going. And so um, they have to understand that they're going to be helping achieve that preferred future by helping identify and screen new talent. There could be uh, individuals who are engineers, entry level engineers that are looking and seeking out new technologies to help the organization harness those technologies to be more effective in the future. And so it's not just the leader, in the front of the ship saying, all right, we're going this way. There are other people involved in implementing um, the particular outcomes from the foresight work. And you have to be committed as an organization to foresight. It's not a half-day workshop and we go home. This isn't the strategic plan you put on the shelf and it gathers dust. It is a commitment organizationally to not just have anticipatory leadership, but you want to be a learning organization where you're consistently out there looking for the signals of change. We today I didn't go to the Blockbuster store and return my VHS tape, right? And we can get into the details of Blockbuster, but they missed Netflix, right? I mean, they knew about Netflix, but Netflix was coming along and Blockbuster wasn't really, as the story goes broadly, just, didn't think it was a big deal. Blockbuster doesn't really exist anymore. I think there may be one store, but they weren't looking at signals of change, right? I think as the story goes, I think Blockbuster could have bought Netflix if I'm right. And so that's just an obvious example. We've got Kodak, Polaroid, right? Other organizations that, to older people like me and younger people like you, right? Maybe a familiar name from years gone by, but today I don't go to the photomat booth, right? I don't drop my roll of film off, right? I don't go by, I use my smartphone, right? And things like that. So um, everyone's involved. It's a team sport and it involves not just the traditional leadership, right? We think of strategy, right? Okay, well, the leaders go off, develop the strategy and come back and say, okay, everyone implement it. This is more participatory across different portions of the organization as well as different levels of the organization.
What stage in a company's development should this be injected?
I think the discipline of foresight can be practiced by any organization of any size. Matter of fact, today working with a company and, in a very, very basic way was talking about foresight and looking at signals of change and trying to get them to think about opportunities and risks, right? We didn't spend time pulling out a bunch of tools and doing that, but I was working through some things that I see on the horizon that they probably want to be aware of to ensure that they're successful, right? So I think it's, in short, any organization, whether you're a startup or you're a mature organization. So yeah.
So in my days as a venture capitalist, our firm invested in very early stage companies. As a matter of fact, we invested in a number of companies that weren't even incorporated when we invested, when they had an idea.
Yeah.
The questions, the thinking that you are bringing out here is the kind of dialogue that we had with the founders, because they had to see beyond Friday to know, as they built whatever they're building or develop whatever they're developing, that what it was going to look like 5 and 8 and 10 years down the road.
Yeah.
Not just a straight line financial forecast, but what is it going to look like in the market? What's the impact of the market?
Yeah.
What other things are out there in the market that they need to be thinking about and planning? This I would think this would be a, obviously at any point in the company, but certainly when somebody's in startup mode,
Yeah.
stage, because you may do this and realize that you need to go find another job.
Yeah.
Just the
Yeah.
reality that
Yeah.
would potentially hit you. Very, very interesting.
Yeah.
So with this, and you said you have clients. So AquLaurus is you're open to do consulting with companies to work the management through the process.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really, I meet them where they are.
Sure.
There's some organizations that don't need or don't desire a full scenario planning exercise, but there are people that just need some advice, some executive level advice, maybe do some workshops. Um, Meet them where they are, because as we just talked about, their organizations are just starting out. They need some basic advice. They're not looking for a large firm to come in and spend lots of money when they're trying to get off the ground. So yeah,
Well, as we go forward here, and we certainly will put this conversation into the community, and there's certainly plenty of companies in water and technology that certainly could use this thought process, I would think.
yeah,
And we will do that and continue to work together. And
yeah,
Matt, it is always interesting and exciting to talk with you.
yeah. Well,
Look forward to the future with you.
yeah. Well, I appreciate your time, Frank, and certainly, if folks want to get a sense of some of the um, topics, signals of change, feel free to take a look at the Water Foresight podcast
Mhm.
and listen to some of those episodes. That may be helpful in thinking about the future of water.
I think and I will absolutely do that. And I think that maybe Mary and I at GlobalWaterWorks should have a conversation with you. Have a great rest of the day.
All right. Thank you, Frank. It's a privilege to be here.
Take care.